Hey, hi, this is Jyotidip. Uh, I have a question regarding the education policy. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you're audible.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if there was an illustration in the policy where it was said that there will be a grade bank, and wherein if someone would leave the education for some reason or the other, the grade will be stored, and he or she can continue with the same grade that he has left, like the percentage or something. Though it was not very clear to me that what is the like the force or the per se of the thing. So can you share some thoughts on this, like what is the
Yeah,
main, like,
yeah. You see, this policy. Now, what are the intentions behind it? I'm not very, I don't want to talk about them here, but yes, this education policy has many exit points. So you can exit and do a job and then get back into the system. Yeah, it does have at various places, after class 10 or after class 12. So there are exit points.
so do you think that it's like a realistic view where a person can exit and once again join, and like if you think about the current scenario or maybe the scenario upcoming scenario, is it a feasible approach what you're thinking? Like suppose if the policy comes into play and we follow abide by it, and the entire infrastructure or the entire like the mentality, the source of education, everyone, like the teachers, the students, though I'm not from the education background, I'm from the corporate background, but still, like I'm asking this
You see,
question.
these are issues of political economy. It depends, what kind of people are needed in the market and what does the government want. If they want, let us say, some kind of minor skilled force, they will skill people at the age in grade 10 and create exit points and offer them some salary. If there is, you know, you should understand that the stay in the school has been increased and the stay might be further increased, to keep people within the system. But the exit points are there because the market may be fluctuating. That's my understanding.
Okay, okay. Jyotideep, thank you for your question. Let others.
Can I ask? Can I
Yeah,
ask
may
one
I?
question? Dr. Barmanda, myself
Ah,
Sudhanshu.
Yeah,
yes,
Sudhanshu.
Sudhanshu.
Yeah. So one of the central points that was discussed by Professor Agnihotri is that three-language formula is highly additive in nature, and he is suggesting or recommending multilingualism in school. My question relates to this multilingualism. How to practice multilingualism in school? Do we have that competent teachers? So at the practical level, do you think multilingualism is feasible?
You see, the concept that I use is multilinguality, not multilingualism. And these are very different. So please, first of all, I think that should be there. So a lot of people who say I know only one language, I would still say they are characterized by multilinguality because they have a very rich verbal repertoire. So I am saying that multilinguality is already constitutive of being human. The question is not how many languages do you use. The question is not how many languages do you teach. That's not the issue. That is why, the three language formula has failed. It has not succeeded at all, anywhere, in any meaningful sense. I mean, you could make a four language formula, it will not. I tried to explain that in my talk. But if you listen to the voices of children, voices of your students, then, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. You see, if you listen to the voices of the students and give them space, then you see there is a lot of literature now, not only on multilinguality, but on, code mixing, code switching, translanguaging, hyperlingualism, where it is shown how the languages that, the verbal repertoire, let's not call it languages, the verbal repertoire that students bring to the class can be used in a meaningful way. Okay. And a lot of peer group learning takes place, and a lot of linguistic analysis takes place in a very sort of effortless way. But you are right. Unless, I completely agree with you, unless we get out of this obsession of a language, unless we get out of this obsession and understand that, Sanskrit has borrowed from Dravidian, Dravidian has borrowed from, Sanskrit, and, English. I mean, for example, have you ever thought how many words, how many English words, for example, or expressions, a rustic child or a farmer's child from the remotest village of the country would know? I think all of you should start counting, the number of words that come to you. They constitute a part of her verbal repertoire, and they can be used in the classroom. And she would similarly know many other languages and many other parts. So I am saying use multilinguality as a resource. And that's why I also said that language policy has to be planned bottoms up, not top down. And I mean, 60 years of history shows you that, it has been a disaster. Not only that 3-language formula has not been implemented in its letter or spirit, also that the proficiency, I mean, our generations, the students have not gained proficiency in any language, for that matter. Not in Hindi, not in English, not in any other. Sanskrit, I mean, they learn Sanskrit for years and cannot understand a word of Sanskrit. Rote learning, memorizing, reproducing, and that's it. So unless you give space to the voices of students, I think you will not be able to create a meaningful linguistic environment. But if you really want to understand the nitty-gritties of how to use multilinguality in the classroom, and also for scientific inquiry and for cognitive growth and for linguistic purposes, for language proficiency, then you need to read up a few things. And I agree with you fully, as I said, it should be a part of teacher training. Otherwise, nothing can happen. It won't happen automatically. And what is needed is a 6-month course, 6 to 8 month program, intensive, not 2 classes or 3 classes. Generally teachers are given 2 days of gender training and they think that's okay. 1 day of disability training and they think this is okay. So 1 day of language training is not okay.
That should become a part of their professional training of B.Ed, in fact.
Yes, yes.
That they are saying 4 years program.
Part of their curriculum. Yes.
Part of, yeah.
Ashokda, may I speak?
One second. Let me finish. I would like you to appreciate that it took me several years and lot of efforts to make the study of language a necessary part of the BLEd program at Delhi University, and to make it a part of the Masters in Elementary Education program at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. It is not that it can't happen; it has happened, but in a very sort of on a very small scale. It has to happen on a large scale. I agree with you. Yes, Nagamani Raju.
Yeah. 2 questions, Professor. One thing is a very insightful lecture. Many things that we haven't thought about, I think you have raised. Many, of course, we do think about. Now, the appeal of regional medium instruction, which is taken in the NEP, is certainly valuable. But having been an educator in a higher education, professional education institute, I have also grappled with this whole thing of 2nd generation learners, parents in urban areas, really seeing English medium as giving a big advantageous leap for aspirations in the post-globalized job market. Now, my whole question is that when they come into higher education, or say if they've studied in the regional language up to school or even graduation, grappling at the postgraduate professional education with English is very difficult, and they are good students with a lot of potential, but they have so many complexes only because they do not know English. And when it comes to job placements, they lose out, and we really have to tell our recruiters that these are good students, please give them a chance. And the whole confidence building exercise becomes very complex. So I am all for regional language, which is comfortable. As you have said, the language of feeling and expression is very important uh, for children. But at the same time, at which point do we also think in terms of this underprivileged section, which has aspirations and they see English as a way in which their aspirations can be realized? That's my first question. The second question is not so much linked to the linguistic aspect, but the NEP talks about merging right from early childhood learning to post-graduation into these educational hubs which are multidisciplinary. It seems very complicated to me, very honestly, because each discipline has its own requirements and needs, and they're talking about over a period of time shutting down all these individual stream institutions. I'm not very clear whether this is good or bad. At one level, I feel it can create interdisciplinarity opportunities, but at another, can it also lead to dilution of streams? So these are my two questions.
Thank you, Professor Rao. I think the questions that you have raised are of a very fundamental nature. I'm not sure whether I'll be able to do justice to them. The first one, I'd like to remind you that what you said and what all of us say, and please don't mind it. All of us say, but something is, wrong with them. They cannot understand, as if everything is right with us, and they have some problem.
Mm-hmm.
My point has been right from the beginning that nothing is wrong with them.
Absolutely.
They have, so, let's understand this. I mean, let's say I have friends in the physics department at Delhi University. Physics was always taught in English, of course, at Delhi University for decades. Today, my friends tell me that we have to teach in the mixture of English and various other languages. Physics at MSc, PhD level is being taught. I'm not unhappy about that. But the point is that the question worth asking is that why? Why is it that the proficiency level of students, whether they come from public school, convents, or from, whatever, their proficiency levels are low in general. They are low because we refuse, number one, to recognize their innate potential. Two, because we refuse to recognize the complexity of the verbal repertoire and multilinguality that they bring.
Absolutely.
Okay? A Hindi teacher will never appreciate, or even an English teacher will never appreciate. Secondly, a Hindi teacher and an English teacher and a social science teacher will never talk to each other. For God's sake, they should. I meet students every day, Professor Rao, every day, who think Sangya is one thing, noun is another thing. I mean, what kind of education are we?
Yeah.
This is regular. So that is my response to you, that, I mean, there are no easy answers. My first response is that there are no, hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah,
Yes.
There are no shortcuts. That's the first. Second, we need to work hard. We need to recognize the innate potential of the learners, and we need to invest a whole lot, not this teacher training of the kind we do, 21 days capsule, and that's it. So professional teacher education is a lifelong process. Okay, and
50 days they have given.
we should learn to trust and have respect for our teachers rather than create CCTVs and doubt them at every stage. Okay. Secondly, the question you asked about the educational hubs, about merging educational hubs. Once again, in some cases, it will be highly desirable. In other cases, it will not be desirable at all. This is what I would say. It will take a lot of time. I think other people may be waiting, but we need to spell this out, that where it will help. And you see, it should not end up St. Stephen or Hindu or Hansraj in Delhi University, making them as autonomous universities and sidelining some official colleges where the poor and the underprivileged actually go, and no money is given to them and they are not upgraded. If this is going to happen, then this is not wrong.
Next question,
Thank
please.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Rao.
Hello.
Next question.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes.
Who is speaking?
Benny
I'm
Matthews.
Benny. Yeah, Benny Matthews. Sir, I have a specific question. It is page number 16 of the document. That is 4.17. It is there talking about a particular fun language learning activity, learning bits and pieces of different Indian languages and using it exchanging. It was kind of appeared funny to me. I would like to know what's your take on that.
Sorry, what? Can you read that again? Sorry.
It is page number 16 of the document.
Yeah.
4.17, talking
yeah.
about fun learning activity of Indian languages.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Yes. So this is very interesting. I mean, thank you for raising that. It is not just a question of language or language learning. Okay. If you remember I would like to tell a joke, which was a reality of the DPEP days, the famous 90s DPEP days, district primary education, which was called activity-based joyful learning. Now, my contention is that kind of activity leads to no learning, and learning is not joyful. All of us know that learning is yes, at the end of the tunnel, there is a lot of joy. I agree. But learning itself is a painful activity. It demands a lot of hard work, right? On the part of the teacher, on the part of the students, the part of the parents, on the part of the society, there is hard work involved. Only then learning can take place. So this fun-based, which my challenge is that if you can design tasks which make sense to the child, which make sense to the students, and raise challenging issues, by all means, yes. If that is what you mean by an activity, that's perfect. If you call that an activity. But singing around, dancing around, playing around, children do that in the street better. I mean, don't make your education based on that. No.
So, next question, Nolini Nangvi.
Professor Burman, there is
Hello.
Reema with us. She
Hello.
would like to ask one question after.
Who?
Reema.
Hello. Ashok da.
Huh.
Jahangir.
Yeah.
Just
Jahangir is from Bangladesh.
Just-
Jahangir, having a question to sir?
Not
Professor
a question. I have two comments only this.
Okay, make short, please.
So, don't honestly, give me the time of 1.5 minutes. I congratulate to Professor Ramakant for a big discussion. I enriched myself in his discussion. This is my first comment about this, to know the position. Another question is there. It is necessary for a student to know the 3 languages. It is necessary for a student to know the 3 languages in Bangladesh. Now, there is only 2 languages. One is mother tongue, another is foreign language, that is English. No necessary in there. But India is a big country, several states and several positions for that reason. And another question is this: 3 languages is applicable for all private institution in India? This is my comment. And Ashok Burman and other persons, I am very helpful to know the lecture from Professor Ramakant. It enriched me. I am a worker of a teachers movement, and I will try to enrich our another colleagues from the Ramakant's speech, and from record I will collect the everything. Thank you.
Okay, Jahangir, he was Jahangir from Bangladesh. He's a teachers movement activist. We are friends. Now, Jahangir, for you, for others as well, there will be a video uploaded in YouTube. Our last meeting, where Professor Sudhanshu Bhushan of NUEPA, he delivered a very important lecture. It is in the YouTube already uploaded. This lecture will also be uploaded. Please, next question.
In the time of Sudhanshu's lectures, I am also participating in the program.
No, okay. You can find it in the YouTube.
Okay.
Next
Thank
person. Avninda, would you like to? Yeah.
Yes, I like to ask
Professor Chopra
yes.
from Chandigarh.
Sir, I'm Avnendra Chopra from Chandigarh. Thank you so much, Professor Agnihotri, for really opening up our minds to the question of language. It's been great listening to you. It's been most enlightening. Sir, one observation I would like to make. Very rightly observed that the child brings a lot of multilinguality, as you said, to the class. What I feel that's so very true. You see, as teachers, we always insist on getting the nuances, the grammar, the spellings of any language that we are conversing in or using right. How far is it correct to lay so much stress on the correctness of language, number one? And sir, I would also like you to comment upon the whole problem of the script. In the land where I come from Punjab, we use Devanagari for the Hindi script. There are many texts in Punjabi available which were written in the Devanagari script. Now, of course, Punjabi is written in what we call the Gurmukhi script. So we all understand Punjabi, but some of us, or rather we say quite a number of us, are unable to read the Gurmukhi script. The same is in Haryana. Now, as we move along, you see, the scripts keep on changing, but what is being communicated may be really understood. So, please comment upon this problem of the script. We have made it into such a huge issue for Urdu is completely understandable to a Hindi speaker, but the problem arises with the Urdu script. It is not with the Urdu language. Sir, I would like to hear your comments.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Chopra. Very insightful questions. You see, this is what I like, and I had told Professor Burman that we should have more space for dialogue. That's why I took only 40 minutes. You see, both the questions that you raise are actually socio-linguistic and socio-political questions. You know, they are not just neutral language questions. Correctness of language. I mean, if you read Chaucer's English, or even if you read Shakespeare's English, and if you read today's English, the versions of correctness would be, I mean, should we say it's me or it's I? You know, we don't know. The correctness is a social construct of the elite. So to say, for example, Professor Chopra, to say that I am capable or you are capable of saying anything incorrect in your language is a contradiction in terms. It's not possible. Okay, there is no way you can make a mistake in your language. Okay, so you cannot be incorrect. Even in the other languages that you are learning, if you are in the process of learning, you are only going through developmental stages. You are not making mistakes. It is predictable. It is predictable that you will say, it has been shown again and again, in stage 1, you will say go, went, gone. In stage 2, you will say go, goed, goed, which is a sign of learning. In stage 3, you will again say go, went, gone. But by that time, you know that this is an irregular verb. In stage 1, you did not know this. Okay. So correctness is an artificial construct which gets the sanctity of the, you see, this policy talks about power just as a word, but this is what you are talking about is power. This is the power of the elite and the power that is certified by the government, by the universities and by the colleges. You know, this is what is certified. Okay. So that is my answer to you. So if this is the perspective with which we look at students, our teaching methods and pedagogical techniques would change completely. You know. Secondly, you are talking of script. I thought I made that very clear, that to a language, script is of no consequence. Punjabi was earlier written in the Perso-Arabic script. Then it was written in Gurumukhi script, also in Shahmukhi script, right? It's not, and now it is also being written in Devanagari script and also in the Roman script. Okay, so I can find Pash written on the same page, you know, in Punjabi, in Devanagari, in Roman, you know, and in Perso-Arabic, in all the 4 scripts. It hurts. It doesn't hurt anyone. You know, it doesn't hurt Faiz Ahmad Faiz if on the same page you find him written in Perso-Arabic, in Devanagari, and in Roman. It actually helps. Okay. So as I said, you know, script, you might need minor modifications. Otherwise, again, you will say, but generally, you know, generally Hindi is written Devanagari. Hindi is written in Devanagari only, you know, and not in Kathi, let's say, you know, because it has the sanction of the powers that be. And powers that be need political power and financial power.
Okay, thank you, Ramakant sir.
Yes, sir.
You have enlightened us. We have understood a lot. Though the new education policy, the book is with us, we haven't yet studied in depth. But one thing I have a question, whether this new education policy will be applicable to all the private educational institutions at par with the government, educational institution or not. That is what I want to ask. Thank you.
I made that point clear right at the beginning, that it is still not justiciable. It is still not law of the land. And even if it is law of the land, at various places it says it will be flexible. You know, it will be flexible and left to the state. But given the homogenization and centralizing tendencies, I don't know. And given the, you know, majority of the present government, we don't know what will happen. Okay, but we can't say yet. Yes, sir.
May I put a question?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
You are M.N. Bhattacharya?
I am Dr. M.N. Bhattacharya from Meghalaya, Shillong.
Yeah.
He's from Meghalaya.
Yeah. Sir, I have several comments on the thing, but I'm not going to that. I'll just talk about one of my experience. 2 years back, from our Meghalaya Retired College Teacher Association, we wrote a letter to Punjab Chief Minister regarding the pension to be given to the teachers of Punjab. After a few days, we got a reply from the Chief Minister, and it was written totally in Gurumukhi. So we could not make out anything till today.
I can tell you what he must have written.
Now, my point is, is it going to be the order of the day next? Because there is no multilingual culture followed.
Yeah.
It is only the one language system being followed. Is it going to be the order of the day?
Yes. Yes.
Now the present NEP will create more problem on this.
You see, it is not so much a linguistic question as a human question. Okay.
Yes.
It is insulting. It is insulting human beings, right?
Exactly.
It is insulting humanity. That's what it is doing. Now, you see, they could write to you in Punjabi, but they could also provide the, you were writing from Meghalaya.
Meghalaya, we wrote in English, so they could have given the English version of it.
But there are other languages spoken in Meghalaya, many languages.
Yes, yes.
Right? So,
yes, exactly.
Right. So they could have provided, they are actually constitutionally required to give you the reply in English and Hindi.
Yes.
They are bound by that. Interstate communication is bound by that.
Exactly.
But this is the power of the state. If you, for example, if tomorrow you are transferred to Punjab and your children have to go to school, they will not be admitted to school unless they learn Punjabi.
So one more thing I'll just like to say, is it not going to harm the federal structure of our country? Because ultimately Hindi will be imposed on everybody. In the regional language, as of now, some of the states in the Northeast, they are very happy that regional language they can teach. But ultimately, I personally feel that regional language will not be able to compete that way. And finally, Hindi will be imposed. That is what. That will ultimately affect the federal structure of the country as a whole.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Bhattacharya, you have made your point. Let sir answer.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You see can I answer?
Yeah, please go on.
You see I think these are very important issues, because they concern the country. They do concern the federal structure of the country. You should also remember that in spite of, it is not that these efforts have not been made in the past. I told you that 1,652 languages were reduced to 121 by the government. You see, by the government after the census. But let us not forget that languages have not died. Unless, the whole community dies, language is so constitutive of us that it's a marker of our identity. People don't let languages die so easily, unless something very disastrous happens, because it defines them. It is transmitted from generation to generation. So you will not have Khasi people abandoned Khasi, or are they still speaking Khasi?
They're still, how
That's
they
what
can
I'm
leave
saying.
it. Yeah.
Probably you do not know that Khasi is a unique language in this country.
Yeah, obviously. It
For
is
a
a
variety
unique
of
language
reasons.
of the land.
But
and their culture is so rich.
I was brought
that's
up,
what we enjoy always.
I went to school and college in Mandi, a small town which speaks Mandayali. It has not been destroyed. I still talk to my friends in Mandayali. So these things will help to sustain the federal structure. It's not easy. It's not easy to destroy people. Not easy.
Professor Anil Sarwal is now on his chair. Thank you. And Professor Agnihotri will be very happy to see you, Anil. You just raise your hand.
I just, if you give me half a minute, Professor Agnihotri, I just have to thank you for agreeing to this invitation spontaneously, obliging us with so many insights into linguistics and especially contemporary view of language, social linguistics, the human view of language, language death, multilingualism. You have covered the entire linguistics and bilingualism in this whole 40 minutes in your presentation, and people are so attracted to you that they won't leave you till 8 p.m. So we just want to thank you, and Professor Burman, our president, will finally thank you. But I am so happy I could come and attend, and I was attending it in the car. That's use of technology now. So I heard you quite a bit coming from my this work I had urgently. Thank you, sir.
But Anil, if people really have some specific questions, I think we can spend another 10 minutes or 15 minutes for questions. So
we can take, sir, we can take two. Anilji, we can take two or three.
Yes.
No repetition, please say no repetition. And
somebody, Gopal Krishna is raising hand.
Yeah.
Gopal Krishna.
Morisha.
Yes.
Go on, Gopal.
Thank you, Professor Agnihotri. My doubt is that what about the tribal children? Because even tribal children do not understand the regional language or the mother tongue. The mother tongue means, I mean, for example, in Odisha, it is Odia. But when we go for some research work or from some other work to the tribal area, we have to take the help of a local teacher to translate the language, the version to those people. So since a new educational policy is emerging, so what can be the possible method of teaching, imparting teaching to those tribal children? Because there are Kolos, Santalas, so many tribes are there, and each tribe has its own language, dialect of its own. And in some states, particularly in Orissa, you know, the Ulchiki language has been introduced to make them children understand. So can you put a word about that?
Yes, sure.
Thank
you very much. Very important issue. You see, I did work with in Parlakhemundi with the Sora teachers a long time ago with Mahendra Mishra and others. So I know Sora, and you see, in the case, there is, I mean, the tribal child is no different from any other child.
Yeah.
Okay? That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Now, but tribal child in a socially constructed hierarchy is pushed to the bottom. Yeah. Otherwise, her language, a Sora child's language, is as good as Sanskrit, is as good as English. Okay. Yes. But somebody has to understand the fact that a lot of knowledge can be imparted in Sora. Okay? And that all the languages that are available in the classroom, including Sora and Odia and Hindi and English, can be used as resources, and many other varieties. You know, that's the whole issue of multilingual. The other important realization, which this policy nor does any other document have, that for a child like Bodo or for Sora or for, you know, Santhali child, by the time she reaches Hindi or English, it is the fourth language or the fifth language.
Yeah.
You know, what are you talking of 3-language formula? I mean, he has already, you know, now I am saying that is a resource. So let us start using all the languages available of all students and all children in the class as a resource.
Yeah. Right.
Very
correct.
Rima, thank you, sir. We have Rima. He or she wants to ask a question. Rima.
Okay.
Hello. Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Rima, and I'm speaking from Azim Premji Foundation.
Hello.
Sir, you were speaking about the early years of children and how they are very formative in understanding the world, and how those experiences are very critical in anyone's life. So this 5+3 and so on formula that is in the policy now, what implication will that have on young children and how they learn language, in your opinion?
I made that, Rima, probably you missed that part of the talk. I made it very clear that I have serious objections to ECCE, And in fact, the policy also recognizes on another page, by the time they forgot, I think, towards the end, the policy does recognize the issue of apnapan. They talk of parivar ka apnapan, neighborhood and family, and how our languages construct our worlds and our conceptual world. And for that, the apnapan, the family's love and care and affection. I said that in my talk at great length, that no country worth its salt. I said that. Any country, Norway, Sweden, Germany, France, nobody sends kids to school before the age of 6. But this policy is planning the life of your children from age 0. Yeah.
Sir, there are 6 people who have raised their hands. I would name them, and I think after that we won't take anyone. So we have Nalini, we have Thupten, we have Jyoti Dip, we have Sania, and Pallavi Deepak Kumar. So these are the friends we would request to speak one after the other and make your questions short so that we can close by 6 p.m. at least.
And they should not repeat, what I have already said in the talk.
Yes, sir. Yeah, Deepak is there.
Deepak is there. Fine.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Hello. Good evening.
Well, indeed, I don't have pretty much of a question, sir. It's just a suggestion I'd like to make. It was indeed a beautiful session, actually. So there's no doubt as such. It was quite productive. But the suggestion that I would like to make is the kind of the quality of the lecture today it was. I don't think it should be limited to these 200 people which are right now in the group. Is there any provision to be uploaded on YouTube or something so that a broader audience can view it, sir? And can benefit out of it?
It will be uploaded in a day or two, and we will send you the link for that.
Wow, sir, that's thank you, sir.
That last session has already been uploaded. Last Sunday we had a session. It has been uploaded already. You go to Forum of Concerned Teachers webinar. You will find it.
Sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Anilji, you may go to next question.
Yeah, now we don't have anyone. 1 or 2 more speakers. We have 5 minutes till 6 p.m. So we can take 1 more or 2 more. Okay, we have Larissa Lepcha.
Dr. Manash wants to ask.
Manash Dasgupta.
I can't see his hand, but yes, he can ask.
Nalini.
Good evening.
Nalini.
Good evening.
Yeah.
This is Larissa here.
Yes.
I have a question regarding an experience. Now, I don't know because this was, and I wanted to ask, how should that person have reacted? Actually, that's going in the order of the day. So this experience is basically, I'm from the Northeast, so we had gone to attend a conference in Delhi. So there were a mixed group. We were from different states of India. So it was a long session. So this speaker came and started speaking in English because all of us could understand English. Now there was a group of people from North India who insisted that the speaker should speak in Hindi. Okay, and they were just about 4 or 5 people. Most of us were from either Northeast or South. So they were quite belligerent. So the resource person actually started speaking in Hindi and spoke in Hindi for the entire session. So most of us switched off because we couldn't understand. And we were very quiet. We didn't even ask him, no, please speak in English. We didn't say that also. Because this group of 4 or 5 people were so loud and so, we didn't want to disagree with them, So in a situation like that, so what happened was some of us from the Northeast, some of them from, I think, South India, we didn't understand anything. The whole afternoon was in Hindi.
Can you make your question short?
So my question is, what should the resource person could have done? Because I think that's going to be the order of the day now. Is it? So my question to sir is, what should the resource person...
is that Larissa? Is that Larissa?
Yes,
thank you. I think... I think these are very sensitive questions. The first thing they indicate to me is complete insensitivity to other human beings. And I think, these people have no right to be called educated. There is a problem with our education. So that's the first thing. Second, these problems are solved all over the world. I mean, nobody raises this question in the UN, no? Nobody raises this question in international conferences because they provide for translators. And this could have been easily possible in such a conference to arrange for instant translations or at least summary of what is being said. I mean, it was largely the duty of the Hindi dominant group to ensure that people who have come from the Northeast understand what's going on. And similarly, let us say somebody was talking in Ao or Angami or Meitei, then it was the responsibility of their group to make them. It's not impossible. And now increasingly it is being done through technology. So I think we should take that help.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we have one last question maybe, or if Professor Agnihotri agrees, we have 4 hands up. I don't know how many have.
Manas Dasgupta from Meghalaya.
Okay. Okay. Let him speak then. Then we can have K. Anilji Reddy after him.
Yes, sir. May I ask question, sir?
Yes.
Bilkul.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Agnihotri ji. You enlighten us on language, particularly linguistic, how the language teaching has to be happen. But while explaining, you mentioned that the teaching should happen the bottom-up approach, not the top-down approach. Could you elaborate a little on that, sir?
Yes. You see, if you have seen the failure, right? You have seen the failure of 3-language formula. You
Yes,
have
sir.
seen it again and again that North India will not learn Tamil or Telugu or Malayalam. You
Yes.
have seen it again and again that Dravidians won't learn Hindi. Why should they? They will learn, when there is an instrumental reason, they will learn. Otherwise, they won't learn. Okay.
Yes.
Now, given that, what I am suggesting is that we should increasingly focus. We will have somewhere away from the target, we will have that, okay, if you have to function in the world, we need a proficiency level in English. But then all students of this country should have comparable levels of proficiency in English. We must ensure that. At the moment, what is happening is that there is a small elite, increasingly shrinking, which has high levels of proficiency in English, and they go abroad and they call the shots from the corporates. Okay, they become CEOs of various companies. But the huge millions of people are left with levels of proficiency of English in government schools where they can hardly speak or understand a sentence. All my generation went to government schools, ordinary government schools. All of us learned English. So why is that not possible? That's number one. Secondly, I am saying it should be bottoms up because it is only that approach that will help us think of innovative ways of using the linguistic resources that students bring to the classroom. Okay. And if you want to understand it more in detail, then you will have to do some reading, some modern reading, but it is entirely possible. So from that, tell me one thing. I mean, think about this. Have you ever seen that students of your class who come with a multiplicity of languages and repertoire, have you ever seen that they don't play together in the playground? They always play together in the playground.
Yes, sir. Yes,
How
sir.
do they manage to talk to each other? So yes. I think, we should have this, that is why I am saying we should have this approach. And it is eminently possible. It has been shown to be possible. There is empirical data to show it that it is possible.
Yes.
So we have K. Anilji Reddy. K. Anil Reddy. Are you there, please?
Anilji, Dr. Manas Dasgupta, he is raising hand for a long time.
Okay then. Let us have him first. Mr. Gupta.
Dr. Manas Dasgupta from Meghalaya.
Yeah. Can we have him?
You unmute him, or he should unmute himself.
Is it okay, sir, now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I have unmuted, sir. Yeah. Sir, good evening. We really had a very illuminating talk from you. Now, point is this, this education policy has basically been bulldozed, taking advantage of COVID or whatever it may be. And in fact, there should have been nationwide discourses on the type of webinar we had. Because, sir, I do not know, the attitude is not to entertain any dissent in anything. In fact, Mahatma Gandhi had said once that the society is counted, its growth is counted based on to what extent it can accommodate the dissent. Now, sir, in a democracy, there has to be dissent. Today, in fact, sir, the exercise we are having, of course, it's a very constructive thing we are doing, but these needs to be taken note of. Now, the power that at the center, will they take note of this sort of discourses which will be made, and what should be the mechanism to make us heard into the power center in our country, sir? Thank you.
Yeah, 2 points. Thank you, Dr. Gupta. 2 points. One, that, as I said at the beginning, it is still not a legal justiciable document. Okay, it will become it. I know it will become, but it is not. And you see, in spite of all the constraints, we are still having this discourse. So I think it is for the audience here to decide and think how they can, constructively raise issues and, create a social kind of pressure that, people are forced, the policymakers are forced to re-examine their belief systems.
Now, sir, but that song is there. How many years must a man should have till he hear people cry? So do you have that year somewhere?
Thank you.
Well,
Yes, Professor Agnihotri, do you want to react again?
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, you see, years. Dr. Gupta, years are not counted in the years of a life of a person.
True.
Revolutions are brought by generations, so, it will, I mean, we should not give up hope, if you give up hope, then nothing is left.
True.
Thank you, sir. We have Sania. Sania, do you want to ask a question?
Let this be last question, Anilji. Let this be last.
Sania has written in the text, she says her audio and video is not good. So what she has said is, one of my observations was related to the 3-language formula as practiced in the school. The school offered French and Urdu at upper primary level, that is 6th. But the principal would differ from giving French to any student at class 6 who does not get 75% in English. So my question is there really a matter of choice? So if we understood it, the principal did not allow any student who did not have 75% in English to opt for French. So is there really a matter of choice in schools?
You see, choices are not gifted to you. You have to fight for the choices. At the beginning of the talk itself, I talked of that these are the real power structures in the society. And nobody will say you do what you want to do. But you need to rationally argue that if there are 5 students, they should be offered French. And you see, I mean, countries like in Europe or in America or in England, if there are 10 Gujarati children, they will be offered Gujarati. Okay. So we need to fight for it. That's what I'm saying. Let's not give hope and fight for it.
Yeah, in fact, in most of the Western countries, they want to include another language besides their own native tongue, which happens to be English. So there's a great movement for that. Okay, we have a question from Karthik, who says NEP has included linguistics, even though inside brackets, as a core subject of education. On this inclusion of linguistics as a core subject in educational training institutes, what do you think are the biggest challenges? And do you think linguistic degrees in India prepare and train scholars to take up such a role?
I noticed that linguistics is mentioned here and there, and India is mentioned at 1 or 2 places. And I don't know whether it is mentioned that linguistics will be offered as a program, as a course at which level? You see, linguistics by itself is already offered at some universities and even at undergraduate levels.
I think he wants to know whether it would be useful. He's
Sorry?
not, perhaps he wants to know whether this would be a useful exercise.
Oh, I'm saying it's extremely useful.
Yes.
It's extremely useful. I said, that, a basic program in linguistics and sociolinguistics and multilinguality should be a core part. You see how best, language is the only open window into the human mind. There is no other open window. I don't know whether people understand this or not. Language is the only empirically verifiable window into the structure of the human mind. And how does the human mind work?
Okay.
So I think all teachers should know something about it. I'm not saying they should become linguists, but they should know and get out of these, stereotypes that Sanskrit is the richest and the most beautiful and the most scientific. Get out of these stereotypes and blind faith.
Friends and colleagues, I think we should not ask any more questions. There are two people whose hands have been there for a long time, so we will close at 6:15 sharp. So may I ask Preetham, Preetham's iPad I see. Preetham can ask his question. And then Yam Prasad is the last one.
Am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Yes, Preetham.
I just want to make a further comment on your what you say. Did you say? IELTS, Anil knows better. Sarwar knows better than anybody else. In Punjab, majority of the students are studying IELTS and going outside abroad to study.
Yes.
So I just want to make a comment to what you said is the exact thing that is happening in Punjab.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
As a physics teacher, I again add to your commentary that when we teach students, we have to use languages of all the region, whole of the region.
Very good.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
for
the last one. Thank you, Preetham ji. This is Professor Preetham Singh Gill from Chandigarh. Now the last one is Yam Prasad Rai. That's the last question.
Thank you for the enlightening the session. I'm basically from Sikkim, that is the northeastern part of India, and I would like to have a suggestion from you. Like in a school, basically in our state where the local children are more, and there are some children who are from different parts of India also, who are not familiar with the local language. And my question is, how do the NEP bridge the barrier of language between this two, the majority local language and that of the, because the instruction basically in NEP says to give in the encourage the local language. So how do we bridge those language barrier between the two sects of the children?
Thank you very much. I think this last question relates most closely to what I have been saying. Mr. Rai, the classroom you describe is not just the classroom of Sikkim. Every classroom is like that. You just have to get into a classroom to find that out. Every classroom is like that. Now the policy doesn't think like that. That is why it doesn't think about using multilinguality as a resource. This is the whole point. So I again would like to suggest I could send a few readings to the forum, and I think some of you, if you read some of those readings, I think Mr. Rai, you will find an answer to your question. That's all I can say.
Yes,
but
sir.
what you have, Mr. Rai, young man, you don't have a problem at your hand. You have a rich resource at your hand. You just need to know what to do with it. That's all.
Thank you, Professor Rai. Ramro question थियो. अलिकति नेपाली मनु म पनि बुझ्छु. Sir, Professor Agnihotri, thank you very much. You have left more questions in people's minds than answers. And your promise of sending us more materials to study is a very welcome suggestion, sir. And I am sure after a while, when we go through those materials and we understand more about the NEP and the language issues in it, your inputs will be most valuable. And I want to tell that Professor Burman said, all this will be documented and sent to the stakeholders. So I won't take any more time except to thank you personally, but our president, Professor Ashok Burman, will make the final comments. And also thank you, sir, and all the participants. And we want to show you the next speaker and where you can reach us. So we have this forum address here, that is concerned.teachers.forum@gmail.com. And next lecture on school education will be by a very, very prominent speaker once again. She is Professor Geeta Gandhi Kingdom. She is the chair of London School of Economics and the director of the largest school in India, in Lucknow. Largest school in the world actually, which is a UNESCO Peace Awardee. So look forward to that. And I would encourage you to attend and come in time, mute yourself so that the speaker is not disturbed. And we apologize to Professor Agnihotri. I saw in the beginning there was some little confusion, but it ended very well. So Professor Burman, can you please maybe conclude this session?
In fact, we all thank Professor Agnihotri from the core of our heart. But this Professor Guna Reddy, one of the coordinators, will now give thanks to the all concerned here, speaker, those who have joined, those who could not join because of technical issues, because I am getting continuous messages, Dada can't reach, there is some technical problem. A lot of rains in eastern India, that's why internet also disrupted in many parts. So Professor Guna Reddy, are you here? Okay.
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah. Thanks to Professor Ramakant Agnihotri ji for a wonderful lecture on language policy in NEP 2020, for having given us insights into very sensitive aspects of this document. I would like to read out one particular statement. In all the aspects of NEP, this is a very sensitive issue which is being debated upon by all stakeholders. Hope there will be consensus, coordination between state government and central government so that the final policy will be implemented to the advantage of the poorest of the poor in this nation. Thank you, Ramakant ji, for having clarified all the doubts, the questions raised by so many participants. Around 300 participants have joined this webinar from Kashmir to Kerala and Gujarat to Baripur, representing various states, representing various organizations. They have raised wonderful questions also, which are clarified by you. In fact, this has been one of the best lectures I've ever heard. Thanks a lot for this wonderful lecture. And thanks to our Burman Dada, who has initiated this debate, formed this forum, and involving many legendary personalities, so that a rich discussion takes place on this document. This is the second webinar being conducted by our forum. And on 30th, again, we are going to have another webinar. In this connection, I would like to inform participants that we are going to form a Telegram group, because in WhatsApp only 200 and so can be put in one group. Whereas in Telegram application, there is no restriction of numbers. That will be informed to you. Anil Sarwalji and Barban Dada will take care of this so that you can write your name, your mail ID, your address in the Telegram group. And we will send you communication hereafter. That will be very easy for us to conduct meetings. You can also raise your doubts. You can also write your comments in the Telegram group so that even without meeting also, before the meeting and after the meeting also, we can have these live contacts with each and every member. This is what I would like to say. Thanks to Anil Sarwalji for moderating the session. So we need to form a clear idea about the language policy that is being implemented in India so that we can help the stakeholders who are now practicing who are not in education system so that the policy can be implemented to the benefit of all students. With these few words, I thank each and every person who has participated and made this program a grand success. Thank you.
Anilji, I would like to show our coordinators. We have 7 coordinators.
Yes, can they speak one by one?
No, just they will raise hand.
Anil, can I have half a second to thank people at the end?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Anil Sarwal, we have got a team of coordinators for conducting this national as well as state level seminars. In state level, local language can be used like that. All are doing excellent work. We have created a network on behalf of the forum. Professor Anil Sarwal is one, Professor Guna Reddy another, Professor Jain Shukla. Shukla ji, raise your hand. Shukla ji. Then Randhoni ji. Randhoni ji. I know, where is it? I don't. Then Mankar from Kolhapur. Halesh from Bangalore. So these are the persons we have in our team, and they are organizing, trying to create a strong base to take these discussions to the root level, ground level. And we are not thinking of having only national conference. We are doing it, national seminar not. We are doing webinars in the local language in the state level also. And also, Anilji, I am surprised to see energy of Sir, Professor Agnihotri.
He will have the last word. He says he wants to speak.
Yeah, half a second. I'd like to thank all the participants who took the trouble of listening to me. Maybe it was boring at places, but I really enjoyed the questions, very insightful questions that followed. I would like to thank everyone, all the 300, many who have left. In particular, Professor Anil Sarwal, who started all this, and Professor Ashok Barman, and Professor Guna Reddy. My heartfelt thanks to all the coordinators and the organizers. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Professor Barman. Professor Barman?
Yeah, okay. It's over. After
Okay.
we have nothing to say. Thank you.
Then.
Okay, so
Thank you, everyone.
Can I leave? Anil,
Yes, sir.
can I
Yes,
leave?
sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
We are very grateful, sir.
Namaskar.